We are recording. Hi, everyone. This is Natalie. I'm one of the Global Times ambassadors here at Cal State Fullerton. And today I have Sarah with me. Would you like to introduce yourself really quick?
Hi, my name is Sarah Franks. I am an alumni from Cal State Long Beach. I graduated in 2018 and I received my undergraduate in international studies.
Ooh, awesome. Okay. One quick question. Where did you study abroad?
I did 2 study abroads, but my longest study abroad was in Israel. I studied abroad in Israel, Haifa, Israel from 2016 to 2017.
Oh, wow. So about a year?
Yes, it was, I was a month shy of a year.
Oh, wow. That's quite a long time. What
Yes.
inspired you to go?
You know what? So it was a lot of factors that played into me choosing to go to Haifa, Israel to study abroad. But I would say the two main factors was my major. So my major is international studies, and we had to either study abroad or do an internship locally. And so I decided that I wanted to take advantage of studying abroad. And then also my faith. Like I didn't go to like Spain or Germany. I went to Israel. Those are the two main factors for why I chose to study abroad in Israel.
That's awesome. I think I would have gone the same route too. I would totally go for a study abroad trip over an internship. I mean, not to
Yes,
diss internships, but I mean, study abroad is such a unique experience, and I'm sure that you
definitely.
saw a lot of growth in yourself, especially being in
Hmm.
such a unique place for such a long period. Because most students go for a semester, a couple
Hmm.
weeks. So since you were there for so long, what kind of growth did you see in yourself from the start of the program to the end of it, and how did it help
Hmm.
you grow?
I would say the growth that I saw in myself was definitely more resilience and tenacity, like built into my character. I definitely saw that. Being there so long, when I first went, I would say I was used to being more comfortable, even going from, just going, having like an American mindset and having things, instantaneous and done the way that I like it, and then going somewhere else and having to adapt to getting on board to what they're doing. That definitely pushed me, and it made me have more of a resilience, a tenacity, but just more of an awareness of myself and the way that other cultures do things.
Hmm. And do you think that you're still growing and learning from that experience today?
You know what? I feel like it's kind of hard to tell. I
Mhm.
definitely look back and like have fond memories of the experience, but I don't necessarily know if I would say like I'm still growing from the experience. I definitely feel that I grew a lot, a lot, but I'm not sure, to be honest. I think that would maybe other people would be able to tell, but for me, I look back and I think I have fond memories of the experience.
Okay, so what would be one of your fond memories or like a vivid memory that you have?
My favorite memories of living in Haifa, Israel, studying abroad in Haifa, Israel, was, I would definitely say like around Shabbat. So where I stayed in Haifa, and they're more observant. Like it was more of a religious city. So around Friday at a certain time, like things are shutting down to prepare for Shabbat. And so I would have to take the bus and I would go with like my big backpack and bag in hand. And I'm like going to the market shopping for, dinner for that Saturday, because I would have a lot of my friends come over, and me and my roommate, we both would like to cook.
Mhm.
And so, with in Jewish culture, like some of the markets, they're set up kosher. So like the meat and the cheese and the produce is all separate. So I would like go and get my produce, and I would go to the butcher, and then I would go like try different cheeses. And I would always, on my way back, I would get a bouquet of flowers. That's like my favorite memory. Like just going into the market, being around the people, and yeah, and the food.
I know food is always the big thing when it comes to studying abroad. Um,
Yes.
what was one of the first surprising things that you noticed or saw when
Mhm.
you first got to Israel or throughout your whole trip?
It's always going to be the people and the way that I love watching people and the way that people interact in different situations. And so definitely the way that Israelis handle situations is very different than how I would say I handle situations. And I grew to, at the beginning, I think that I took it more as like brash and like, oh my goodness, that's so rude. Like I would never do that. But it's just the culture of the people. Like, for example, I remember going out to a restaurant with someone. They had like pulled on the waiter's like shirt or something like, hey. And I was just like, oh my God, you just, so Israeli culture in general, I noticed was very, very straightforward. And it wasn't like, not to like make a generalization, but just there were so many people that were like that, like very straightforward, you know, like, are you Ethiopian? Are you, I'm like, no, I'm not. They're like, yes, you're Ethiopian. I'm looking at you. You're Ethiopian. Like, okay. So, oh goodness, I feel like I left the question.
No, I think you're on the right track. Like,
Okay.
what else did you notice firsthand? Or you can touch on your identity and how your identity study affected your study abroad experience, or vice versa.
Definitely made me more straightforward. That's something that my mom told me when I came back. She was like, wow, you are very straightforward. And I already was, but it just was magnified. So at one point out here, we would have a joke like, you would say, oh, when you see Kanye West and he's staring at someone, he won't look away. It was like that intensity, like, you know, out there, you're staring at someone, you just, I mean, awkward, more situations where I noticed out here it would be awkward. It wasn't awkward out there. It's just like everyone was just very straightforward.
Oh wow. So I'm pretty sure that kind of affected how you interacted with others, either in Israel or even back home, right?
Yes, I would say I didn't notice it until I got back home. And it wasn't until others told me the changes that they saw in me that I realized that that experience shaped my identity. But being there, I would say like the first couple months I did cry a lot, but I think it was because I was adjusting to, you know, the people, the culture, and everything. But it definitely made me stronger as a person. So in that way, it shaped my identity.
Awesome. So you talked about homesickness just now. What other challenges did you have during your experience, if any other ones?
That was the biggest one, to be honest. Once I hit that 6-month mark, I was really missing home. And, you know, I would WhatsApp my family and I would see them partying. I would see them celebrating. I even missed, you know, I even had a death in my family. And so seeing all my family together and understanding that I'm so far away, I can't just go and drive over and, you know, be there with my family and comfort my family, that was difficult for me. But how I overcame that obstacle was, I think I had to change my mindset and make up in my mind, like, you're going to finish this out. You know, you are going to stick with it. You're going to finish it out. And it wasn't until I made that mind shift, you know, that I was able to thrive in what I was doing now. I had to focus on like what I'm doing and knowing like things are going to be okay. There's nothing I can do. So I have to take in fully what I'm experiencing right now in this moment.
That's a perfect statement, because that's exactly how I felt when I went to China for the first time. I was there for 5 months, and just in the first 3 weeks, I was like, "Oh my God, I made a mistake."
Yeah,
I
right.
was like, "You're there for a reason. You signed up for this," and I said, "Yeah, you're right." But afterwards, you know, you just get over it. So for other students who are afraid of studying abroad, or worried, or skeptical about studying abroad, what advice or tips do you have for them?
I would say that I definitely relate to the feeling of feeling uneasy with any new experience, especially because I was staying with my mom before I studied abroad, and I was very close. I didn't, you know, move, did not see myself moving, did not want to leave. But when I knew it was time to go, I went with that experience. And yes, you may be fearful, but I believe that when you push past that fear and you can do it afraid, that you're going to see that it wasn't as scary as you initially thought that it would be. Like you're gonna make it. You're gonna survive through it.
Good tips and good advice. Is there anything that you would want to change about your study abroad experience?
To be honest, no, I don't think so. Like, there's really nothing that I would change. If anything, the only advice that I would have given myself is, I think while I was there in my journey, I compared my perception of what I was going through or my experience to other students that were there. But I think that I had to understand and realize that my experience was unique. Like, for example, out of the group that I was there, out of all the groups, because I was there a year, so I was able to see 3 different groups come in, because I went in at the beginning just doing the language program, and then I did 2 semesters, and I was the only Black American student in my program. And so the way that I experienced certain things was different than someone else who was maybe Mexican American who was studying abroad, or Germany coming into Haifa, Israel for that program. So I compared myself, and if I would go back, I would say don't compare the way that you're internalizing this experience, the way that you're dissecting this experience. Just be in the now, and that's okay. The way you experience it is the way that you experience it.
That's awesome, and that's a good reflection.
Mm-hmm.
One quick follow-up. So because you're the only Black American student there, how did people perceive you, either between the other students from the other countries or between the people of Israel?
So if I look at Israel as a whole, I would say, from if just glancing at me or a small interaction, a lot of people assume that I was an Ethiopian Jew because Israel has a really large Ethiopian Jewish population there. So just from the way that I look, they assume. And then my name is Sarah Tamar Anne Franks. It's a very Jewish name. So they're like, okay, it's not until they hear my accent when I'm speaking English that they're like, okay. The others in my program, I would say anytime you are the only, Black American or whatever ethnicity, you somehow become the spokesperson for everyone. Like, I become the spokesperson for Black Americans. So I have instances where they're like, oh, sing Lauryn Hill, or like, something about Black culture, like Black hip hop or hip hop or whatever. And I'm like, okay, look, I can't represent every Black person because I feel my experience is unique as well. So in that regard, I think that people viewed me as sometimes like the spokesperson for all Black people. And so that could be overwhelming,
Yeah, I would guess that they probably asked a lot of questions about not just your Black culture, but American culture, maybe even about California.
Yes, and I lived in Compton too.
Okay.
So Compton is pretty known, way more known than what I thought it was. So when I say Compton, they're like, oh my goodness, Kendrick Lamar, Snoop Dogg. Like, they think I know all these rappers and stuff. I'm like, look, I don't. So I would always say from keeping it Compton to keeping it kosher, like, yeah, that was my little thing. But yeah, so that was how I think that they viewed me.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. I can relate because when I was in China, even though I'm part Chinese, and after they hear me speak and talk, they know that, oh, you're actually not, native Chinese. And
right.
So they would ask me all sorts of questions about California and the Trump administration. So it was very interesting because there are lots of things happening, right? So during the years. So they thought I was like the spokesperson. It was interesting hearing about their stereotypes about people from Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah, did you hear about those a lot, or like did people come up to you about those?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, definitely. Especially, I think, unfortunately, in other cultures, the media, especially of how they portray Black women, Black American women can be very adverse to the experience of a lot of Black American women. So when I was out there, there were certain perceptions that I believe some people may have viewed that was definitely not me. And so, yeah, culture, media plays a huge part in how other cultures see not just Americans, but like Black Americans. And So
how did you deal with the people who had stereotypes about you, about Black American women, and how did that make you feel?
I would say I can understand. I wasn't like angry, like, how could you? Because maybe if I watched certain things and I just saw the same thing being fed to me, maybe I may have the same perception as well. But I feel that no matter where I go now when I travel, even at that time, I took it as my own duty to be true to myself and to show my true self. And so, that's what I did. I didn't shy away from like who I was as a person. And I think that allowed people to get a different perception of like, oh, hey, this is different than what I thought. So yeah, just a duty to be true to who you are as a person.
Perfect statement, perfect advice, because I think too many students kind of get into the fear of stepping out of their comfort zone, and it's all about getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see, maybe 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
One is, quick question. What was the other program that you did?
I went to Italy, and so I took a intro into Italian culture course because that's where I thought I was going to study abroad. And as much as I loved it, I did not see, like once I went there, I think the determining factor, now this is really Black Americans, they didn't have like Black hair supply, like beauty supply places. And I was just like, I feel like this place would be hard for me to like adjust and find things that I need here.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting.
Yes. So I loved it, but I was kind of thinking like, I don't know if I could do this a whole year.
Okay.
Yes.
It's an interesting quirk, but I like that you mentioned it because the little things like that do make a difference. And the fact that you basically called Israel your home for almost a whole year.
Yes. Yes.
So it's all about finding those little niches that kind of make you feel more adjusted to the environment, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you go somewhere, you're automatically thinking like, okay, I got to find this. I have to find just things to make you feel kind of comfortable. So when I was there in Italy, although I had a great time, I didn't see myself being able to be there like a whole year. So that kind of changed my mind.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Keeping your options open, understanding what you really want, what you're looking for. That's awesome. And I love hearing about your experiences because I don't think I've met many students who studied in Israel. So I'm learning a lot.
Yes, it was very different. It was really different.
Yeah. So I have one more question for you, just to kind of wrap things up overall. Is there anything else that we have not talked about that you would like to share?
I would say that if you study abroad, this may sound so cliche, but I think it's true, is the connections, rapport, and the friendships that you build with people is so different than the connections and the friendships that you may build at home. Not taking away from that, but it's just a different richness in the friendship that you foster when you're somewhere else and you have to depend on yourself, but also you have to trust people to a level that you may not have trusted while you were at home. So, and that I would say, be ready to like make lasting friendships with people and get really close with people in a short amount of time.
Awesome. And quick follow-up, do you still keep in contact with the friends that you made?
I do actually. One of my roommates, I went to visit her. She now lives in Germany. And so, yes, and I still talk to some of my friends that stay in Israel. And I follow, because I used to go to church out there. So I still follow like people from that congregation and just seeing, what's going on out there. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, sharing your wisdom and knowledge. Do you happen to have any other questions or anything you'd like to share?
No.
Okay. All right. So we can go ahead and wrap up this interview. So thank you again so much for joining us and spending time.
Thank you, Natalie.
Talk to us. Well, me, but we're going to be sharing this interview with the students. So hopefully after they see this, they'll realize she looks like me. We have the same skin color. I can do what she did. So thank you so much.
Definitely so. You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.